I think Millie's been getting a bit cocky because I haven't been strict enough. She still complains about every little thing and throws fits when things don't go her way. I'm so tired of dealing with her.
Yeah, I get that.
Lately, because of what Elena said, Carlton and Bridget have been giving us a hard time. Maybe we should just put her in a care facility and be done with it.
That sounds good to me. It's rare that we agree on parenting. I'll start looking for a residential care facility for her.
Please do. I can't wait to be free from the hassle of taking care of an autistic child.
I had just come back parents' home and overheard my parents having this unbelievable conversation. Hearing my parents call Millie and me troublesome kids made me furious. More than anything, I couldn't forgive them for calling Millie a hassle and planning to put her in a facility.
Then I'll take care of her.
I couldn't hold back any longer and burst into the living room, shouting at my parents.
You were eavesdropping?
Yes.
I heard everything about the facility. I won't let you do that. And how do you plan to take care of her? You're still a college student. I'll figure out the money. I won't leave Millie with people like you. You think you can do it?
Maybe it's for the best.
She'll learn how hard it is to be with Millie and realize how powerless she is. She won't defy us anymore. So it's like tough love. I like it. Fine, take her. But you said you'd handle it. We're not helping at all. Once you realize how tough it is, you'll thank us.
I slammed the living room door in frustration, seething at my parents' smug faces. They expected me to give up. Knowing that, there was no way I could ever send Millie back to them. For Millie, I was ready to face any hardship. But it was my parents who would regret it in 10 years. My name is Elena. I'm 19, and I've just started college. Leaving home for college, I didn't move out on my own. Now, I live with Millie. Millie is 6 years younger and still in middle school. Living together as a college student and a middle schooler, people sometimes mistake us for kids from a complicated family without parents. But that's not the case. Our parents are very much alive. However, with their major issues and Millie's minor ones, I decided to live with Millie.
This toothbrush is the wrong color.
Oh, sorry. The old one was worn out, so I got a new one. Is this color not okay?
No. It has to be blue.
Got it, wait here. I'll run to the grocery store. I stopped making breakfast and hurried to the local grocery store to get a blue toothbrush for Millie. You might wonder if this is necessary, but it is. If I don't get the blue toothbrush, Millie might have a meltdown. Millie has autism spectrum disorder and is very particular about certain things. So, her insistence on a blue toothbrush isn't just being fussy. It was my mistake to buy a different color because the store didn't have blue. I'm heading out.
All right, have a good day.
Millie waved cheerfully and headed off to school. It was a usual sight. Since my classes started from the second period today, I took my time with breakfast after seeing Millie off. Millie has autism, but she goes to school just like other kids. There is a support staff at school, so I feel at ease. At first, I was worried about living alone with Millie, but we've managed without any major issues and live peacefully. Every day was like a battle till I obtained the peaceful breakfast time like this. Millie wasn't the cause. The main issue was my parents. We discovered Millie's autism when she was a baby.
You can wait quietly? You're such a good girl.
Is she behaving again?
Yes, even when I stop holding her, Millie doesn't cry at all.
Elena cried a lot and was a handful, remember?
Did I really cry that much?
Mom and Dad doted on Millie. When parents focus too much on the younger child, the older one might feel neglected. But I was already in elementary school when Millie was born, 6 years apart. So, I quickly understood why they adored her so much. Besides, I was also charmed by Millie's cuteness. But my parents were concerned because Millie was too well behaved.
She doesn't cry even with a dirty diaper. She can crawl now, but she doesn't move around much. Even when we hold her, she doesn't react.
As a child, I found it strange that my parents were worried despite Millie being so good. After a while, my parents took Millie to the hospital, where they found out she had autism. At that time, Millie was just a baby who couldn't do much, so autism didn't change our daily life. My parents continued to adore Millie without doing anything differently. They told me about Millie's autism, but as an elementary school kid, I didn't understand what it meant. However, problems started to arise when Millie entered preschool.
What's Millie crying about?
She got bitten by a mosquito at preschool today. She scratched it until it bled.
She injured herself by scratching and can't stand the pain? This is really tough.
She's been like this at preschool too. Other kids say she's noisy.
She can't sit still during group activities and causes a scene, right?
Exactly. Every day, the teachers tell me about Millie's troubles. The other day, she even hit a teacher who tried to discipline her.
If this continues, they might ask her to leave. Wouldn't it be better to withdraw first?
That might be true, but... While I was playing my game, my parents had a serious discussion at the table. They thought I was still a child and discussed complex issues in front of me. But children understand more than adults think. I grasped most of their conversation. And I thought,
leaving because it's embarrassing? Not because she's bothering the teachers and other kids?
It seems like Millie's autism had been communicated to the preschool. However, Millie rarely threw tantrums at home, so my parents thought it was just a stronger phase of defiance. But living in a group setting was too stressful, and Millie was causing more trouble at preschool than they had anticipated. It seems that at this rate, Millie won't be able to continue attending preschool. And that's not the only problem.
If Millie can't go to preschool, then does that mean I can't go back to work even though I just resumed working? Should I quit my job instead? You can't handle taking care of Millie. Stop saying things like that just to irritate me, okay?
Stop talking to me like that.
If I have to quit my job, I should be able to say what I want. Millie is our child, so it's not fair to blame me alone.
I felt uncomfortable in the living room, so I stopped playing my game and escaped to my room. I think it was around this time that my parents' approach to Millie began to change. Some time passed, and I became a middle schooler, while Millie became an elementary school student. At school, Millie had a support aide who helped her. About once or twice a week, she would take classes tailored to her needs, separate from her classmates, allowing her to attend school like everyone else. My parents told me that when they were kids, everyone had to conform to the same values at school. But now, individuality is valued, and I believe that everyone is different. It seems that Millie's classmates share this understanding. Therefore, even though Millie has autism, her classmates just see her as Millie, and no major issues have arisen. Some kids might find her difficult to deal with and annoying at times. But that's not because of her autism, it's just that some people don't get along with each other. It's as simple as that, and there's no problem with her school life. In fact, she plays with her friends normally and doesn't suddenly make a scene or run off when she's with me. My impression of Millie now, compared to when she was in preschool, is completely different. However, my parents' perception of Millie seems to be very different from mine and those kids around us.
Stop it! Let me out!
When I came home from school, I heard Millie's voice coming from the storage room, and the door was rattling. There were 2 large boxes stacked in front of the door. Just by pushing them with my finger, I could tell they were very heavy.
Millie! Hang on a second. I'll open it now. Wait. Don't open it without permission.
As I tried to move the boxes, Mom appeared from the back, arms crossed, glaring at me. I felt a surge of fear towards my mother, but I couldn't back down now.
Mom, did you do this? Why is Millie locked up? She's always so noisy. Complaining about snacks, refusing to do homework, and causing a fuss every time. So I put her in there.
Millie isn't being selfish, is she? She just has clear preferences for snacks and always does her homework at night.
She can be picky if she wants, but I don't like the noise. It's better for everyone if she's in there, away from the living room. I'll let her out when she tires herself out, so just wait a bit longer. There's no way I can wait for that.
I ignored Mom and tried to move the boxes. I couldn't budge them with my strength alone. When I checked inside, I found 2 water containers. They probably held around 20 liters each. Since there were 2 boxes, there were 4 containers in total, weighing about 176 pounds. No wonder I couldn't move them easily. But if I took them out one by one, I might manage. As I put all my effort into moving each container, Mom snorted and went back to the living room.
Millie, are you okay?
Yeah, Elena. When I opened the storage door, Millie was crying terribly. She had been locked up for some time, and her voice was hoarse. I couldn't forgive Mom for doing this to Millie. That night, I explained the situation and asked Dad to scold Mom. However, Dad's response was chillingly indifferent.
No wonder Mom is mad. Millie is actually noisy. But that doesn't justify locking her up, does it? Your upbringing is up to Mom. If you have complaints, tell her directly, not me. I'm tired from work. Don't burden me with more problems at home.
Dad brushed me off as if I were a stray dog. I knew he was indifferent to us, but I didn't think he'd remain so even when Millie was locked up. Mom also often gets angry at Dad's lack of involvement in childcare, leading to their frequent fights. If they're going to argue about childcare, I wish it were about something more substantial. Realizing I couldn't rely on Dad, I decided to handle Millie's situation myself. But since Mom wouldn't listen to me, all I could do was come home as early as possible to protect Millie. Even after that, Mom continued to lock Millie up occasionally, but knowing I would come to rescue her, Millie stopped making a fuss and waited quietly. Mom, noticing that Millie no longer caused a commotion, continued to lock her in the storage but stopped placing boxes in front of the door. Millie could leave any time but chose to stay quietly in the storage until I came home, so Mom decided the boxes were unnecessary. For Mom, the storage became a place to keep Millie quiet. As Millie learned to wait for me quietly, the incidence of her causing a fuss decreased. However, as Millie advanced in school, the situation changed slightly again.
I told you I don't want this. Shut up. Clothes are clothes. Just wear it without complaining. I want to wear the green one today. That one's old and I threw it away.
From the morning, Millie and Mom were arguing loudly. Mom had bought new clothes for school, but Millie didn't like them. When I looked at Dad, he stopped eating breakfast, looked annoyed, and stood up. I thought he would mediate, but he just left for work. I wished he could meet my expectations.
Millie, do you want to wear mine?
It's green and similar in style.
Okay. I'll settle for that.
When I showed Millie the green clothes from my room, she reluctantly agreed. It seemed any green clothes would do. Millie had strong preferences about colors and orders, and when she reached middle school, she started asserting these preferences verbally. She only liked blue toothbrushes and apparently chose her clothing colors based on the day of the week. She also insisted on doing her homework only after dinner and that she had to take her shower first. Millie would make a fuss whenever things didn't go exactly her way with these matters. It wasn't a big deal and we just needed to accommodate her, but Mom seemed to find it bothersome to cater to Millie's quirks, leading to more clashes between them. As a result, I'm home. Huh? Where's Millie?
She was being loud again, so I told her not to come back until dinner time and kicked her out. What? So where did Millie go?
I don't know.
You're kidding! I can't believe this!
I rushed out of the house in a panic. A middle schooler should be able to go out and play on her own. But Millie has autism. There's no telling what could happen and where. Millie refuses to go anywhere except along her set route and paths she's walked before, so I decided to retrace the route Millie takes between home and school. Oh, thank goodness. You were here. I thought you'd come here, Elena. Millie was sitting quietly on a bench in the park located between our house and her school. She seemed to have predicted that I would retrace her school route. I took Millie's hand and we returned home together. When we got home, Dad was back from work. I know it's pointless to tell Mom, so I explained the situation to Dad. But I'm not expecting much from Dad either.
I told you, I'm leaving you kids to Mom, didn't I? Don't come whining to me about every little thing.
I'm not shocked since I wasn't expecting anything in the first place. That night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. As I headed to the bathroom, I noticed the light was on in the living room and I could hear my parents' conversation from inside.
Why do you dump everything about the kids on me? I'm tired from work. You quit your job, so of course it's natural for you to look after the two of them, isn't it? What's natural about that? If you're going to act so high and mighty, why don't you earn enough so we don't need my dad's financial support? Aren't you ashamed that we've been relying on support ever since I quit my job? If you're going to say that, then why don't you go work part-time? You complained when you quit your job, didn't you? Millie's older now and goes to school, so you can work now, can't you? What if something happens at school? I'm the one who has to deal with complaints from the teachers when I can't get there right away.
As usual, my parents were fighting about us in the living room. Listening to their conversation makes me feel like I'm being treated as a burden, and it doesn't feel good. But I overheard some useful information, so I'll try not to let it bother me. The next day, I called our grandparents Carlton and Bridget and asked them to scold my parents. Apparently, we've been receiving financial support from our grandparents ever since Mom quit her job. In that case, my parents shouldn't be able to defy our grandparents. My plan seemed to work, and Mom stopped locking Millie up or kicking her out. I feel like her clashes with Millie have decreased a bit too. Dad also stopped dumping everything on Mom and started doing things when asked. But it's clear that they're both reluctantly doing it because our grandparents told them to. It shows in their expressions and attitudes. At this rate, I think there's a possibility they could revert back to how they were before. I resolved to take Millie away from this house once I started working. But it seems that was too late. When I became a college student, I started living on my own. The plan was to get used to living independently, then call Millie to join me once I got a job. I was worried about leaving Millie at home, but I thought our parents should be okay for a while after being scolded by our grandparents. However, I tried to go home as often as possible and asked our grandparents to check in on them from time to time. What a pathetic pair of parents, being monitored by both their own parents and their child. One day, I returned to my family home and decided to spend the night before heading back. That night, I woke up again needing to use the bathroom and overheard my parents' conversation in the living room once more. The contents of their discussion were unbelievable.
Now that I've stopped scolding Millie, I think that girl is getting a bit carried away. She's still nagging about every little thing, and if I don't accommodate her, she'll start making a fuss. It's still such a hassle. I'm tired of raising this kid.
True.
Lately, we've been getting an earful from Carlton and Bridget because of what Elena said. Let's just put Millie in a facility and make our lives easier.
That's a good idea.
It's rare for you to have a same opinion on child-rearing matters. All right, I'll look into residential facilities for the disabled.
Please do.
I'll finally be free from dealing with an autistic child.
Anger welled up inside me upon realizing that my parents considered my sister and me to be burdens. Above all, I couldn't forgive them for calling Millie a hassle and trying to put her in some facility.
Then I'll raise her.
Unable to contain myself, I found that I had flung open the living room door and declared this to my parents before I knew it.
You were listening? Yes, I heard everything, including the part about putting Millie in a facility. I won't let you do that. You say you'll raise her, but how do you plan to do that? You're still a college student, you know? I'll figure out the money somehow. I can't leave Millie with the likes of you. Listen, even if you say that.
As Dad and I were talking, Mom tapped Dad's shoulder and joined the conversation. It's fine, isn't it?
Once you experience the difficulties of being with that girl and realizes your own powerlessness, you won't be able to defy us anymore, right? You mean it'll be a good lesson for her? That might not be a bad idea. All right, got it. Take Millie with you. But remember, you said you'd take care of her yourself. We won't lift a finger to help. You'll appreciate us once you understand just how challenging it is.
Irritated by my detestable parents' expressions, I slammed the living room door shut without another word. Starting the very next day, I immediately began preparations for Millie's move, and within 2 weeks, we started living together. It would be a lie to say I had no anxieties about a college student like myself living together with my autistic sister Millie. Even so, I couldn't leave Millie with those parents. I reaffirmed my determination to continue living with Millie in a way that would never let my parents have their way. However, once I started living with Millie, things went surprisingly smoothly. Millie is very well behaved. She shows particular preferences about things like the clothes she wears and the food she eats, but that's been the case since she lived at home. Come to think of it, I remember seeing her playing with friends when she was in elementary school. By the time she reached the upper grades, there were hardly any calls from the school about troubles. Even when Mom locked her up at home, she quietly waited for me to return, and when she was kicked out, she predicted my actions and waited for me at the park. The only time Millie would make a fuss was when she was at home, mainly with Mom. Finding this strange, I decided to look into autism a bit more thoroughly than I had before. That's when I realized something. This made sense. It's been a year since I started living with Millie. I'm off.
Okay, have a good day.
Millie waves energetically as she heads to school. It's the usual scene. My lectures start from the second period today, so after seeing Millie off, I leisurely enjoyed my breakfast. Freed from our parents, Millie's personality has become much brighter. Compared to when she lived at home, Millie seems like a different person. One time, Millie and I tried to predict what would become of our parents in the future. What do you think will happen to Dad and Mom, based on your predictions, Elena?
Mom complained when she quit her job, but now she's not even working part-time, right? since the support from grandparents stopped after we left home. I guess they'll have a tough time in their old age without any savings. I think it'll be even more miserable for them. Why? Because I've observed our parents more closely than you, Elena, so I understand them well. It seems Millie believes our parents will face an even more terrible future than I anticipate. I thought Millie's own wishes might be mixed in with her prediction, but she ended up winning this guessing game. 10 years later. I was 29, and Millie was 23. We've moved since then, but I still live together with Millie. One Sunday, while Millie and I were relaxing at home, we suddenly heard a loud knocking at the front door. The person was pounding on the door instead of ringing the doorbell, so Millie and I both felt terrified and trembled together. However, upon hearing the voice coming from the entrance, our fear vanished in an instant.
Elena! Millie! You live here, don't you? My mom told me. Open up, please!
Millie and I let out a sigh filled with both relief and exasperation, then headed to the front door together. Making such a commotion would disturb the neighbors, so we decided to at least let Mom into the entryway for now. This was probably just as Mom intended. She likely thought that simply ringing the doorbell would get her turned away.
Ah, Elena, Millie, it's been a while.
Look how splendid you've become. When we opened the door, Mom tried to barge right into the house, so Millie and I blocked her with our arms outstretched.
Hey, what do you think you're doing, trying to enter without permission?
Huh? It's fine, isn't it?
If you want to talk, we'll hear you out here for now.
Is that so? Mom took a step back and took a deep breath with her hand on her chest. She seemed somewhat nervous. Then she apologized to us with great vigor. I'm truly sorry. I was out of my mind 10 years ago. I think I was especially horrible to Millie. Millie and I exchanged glances. It's not that we were confused by Mom's sudden visit to apologize. We knew that Mom's apology was an insincere lie and that apologizing wasn't her real reason for coming.
Let me say this first, we won't live together with you. Huh? How did you know what I was going to say?
We can pretty much guess. We've heard from Grandpa and Grandma about what you've been up to. Realizing that we had seen through her true intentions, Mom made a rather awkward expression. Our parents divorced 3 years after Millie and I started living together. We had witnessed them being on bad terms many times. With us gone, leaving just the two of them, their unlikable qualities probably became even more pronounced. That's why we predicted that the day our parents would divorce wasn't far off. Since we had anticipated it, we weren't surprised when we heard about their divorce, and frankly, we couldn't care less when it came to our parents. You've been living alone since the divorce, right? Once people get a taste of an easy life without working, it's hard to break out of it.
But Grandma said that Mom has always had a personality that goes with the flow and takes the easy path ever since you were a child. So maybe that's why you found it bothersome to accommodate Millie and clashed with her so often.
Mom didn't work even after the divorce. She apparently thought a life without working was comfortable. The fact that she could live for 7 years without working after the divorce was thanks in part to the division of assets at the time of divorce, but that's not the whole story.
Still, I can't believe Dad had an affair.
And apparently the woman was 10 years younger than him. Dad was unexpectedly shrewd. The cause of our parents' divorce was Dad's infidelity. As a result, Mom got consolation money for the affair, pushed unfavorable conditions onto Dad, received a larger portion of the couple's savings, and lived off that money for the past 7 years. However, if you don't work, the money will only keep decreasing.
You've come to us because you've run out of money, right?
You asked our grandparents for help first, but they turned you away, didn't they? We heard about that too. There's no way Grandma and the others would help Mom after you tried to abandon Millie. Mom must be around 58 years old now, right? You quit your job before turning 30? Even if you say you want to work now, you'll face many challenges at your age. And with your lack of motivation, you probably don't even feel like working anyway. Well, even if you start saving money now, a difficult retirement is pretty much guaranteed.
Mom fell silent from the beginning of this conversation, staring at us with a puzzled look in her eyes. It's not because we're voicing Mom's own thoughts.
Are you really, Millie?
Yeah, why?
What about your autism?
I have autism, so what?
What do you mean? How are you so put together? Don't you depend on Elena to get by? That's rude. I know I caused some trouble for Elena, but I don't think I completely depend on her. I have a job too, you know. I heard from my mom that you have a job. But isn't it just some simple tasks through disabled employment? Mom, that's enough of belittling Millie. Millie disclosed her autism to the company and is working admirably as a programmer in a regular position. Millie is a programmer.
Mom's eyes widened to twice their size and her mouth hung open, astonished by the difference between Millie now and 10 years ago. Huh? I couldn't help but laugh at Mom's odd expression.
What's with that face, Mom?
Millie has high-functioning autism.
High-functioning autism?
Autism is often accompanied by intellectual disabilities. However, about 20% have mild intellectual disabilities and higher intellectual functioning. This is called high-functioning autism. Millie has autism spectrum disorder, which used to also be referred to as Asperger's syndrome or pervasive developmental disorder. But now, the terminology has been unified under autism spectrum disorder, including high-functioning autism. Mom had lumped it all together as autism, but looking closely, there are several types of autism. Millie has autism, but with mild intellectual impairment. That's why she could play normally with friends, and was quiet when we first started living together.
But didn't she constantly have problems in preschool?
That was simply because she was still immature mentally.
Wasn't she always making a fuss at home?
That's because you ignored Millie's fixations and tried to force her to listen. Apparently, Millie experiences more stress than others when she can't do what she has in mind. But it's not a big deal if you just pay attention to that stress. The things she has in mind are mostly trivial, like brushing teeth, clothing colors, the order and timing of using the bathroom. So in Millie's case, she's able to work.
Still, to be a programmer.
Millie develops strong fixations on certain things. When she took a light programming class in high school, it captured her interest. She started studying on her own outside of school. After graduating high school, she got a job at her current company and is apparently one of their top performers.
So Millie is a programmer and Elena is a nurse? Meaning you both have decent incomes?
It's not a lot, but we get by.
Then you should provide some support. You need to repay me for raising you.
Mom straightforwardly demanded money. However, she seemed flustered, as if backed into a corner with no concern for appearances. Such brazen people are troublesome.
Locking me up and kicking me out of the house was abuse. Since I didn't report it, let's call it even.
As I was warily facing off against the unabashed Mom, Millie swiftly rejected her words and chased her out. After closing the front door, Millie gave me a thumbs up. Getting rid of Mom made us feel a bit relieved. 3 months after Mom's visit, Dad showed up.
Ah, Elena, Millie. Look how great you've grown up. I'm so sorry about 10 years ago. I wasn't in my right mind then. I know I treated Millie especially horribly.
I felt like I was watching a rerun. Dad came to apologize, but we knew his motive was the same as Mom's.
We're not going to living together. We heard the stories from grandparents. Before coming here, you went to Grandma for help and got turned away. You married your mistress who was 10 years younger, but got divorced because of her reckless spending, right? And apparently, she was a parasite who dated and married men, blew through their money, then dumped them when it ran out. So she used up all your money and left you. Dad, you're 61 this year, right? Being left with nothing in your 60s must be rough. You were thrilled thinking she was 10 years younger than Mom, but too bad. Though you must have known she was divorced with a kid. Maybe you should have been more cautious instead of jumping in. Are you really Millie? I don't want to explain, so just ask Mom.
I got irritated with Dad saying the same things as Mom. And the rest unfolding the same way as with Mom irked me even more.
You too! Pay back the debt of gratitude for raising you! Didn't you and Mom receive support from Grandma and Grandpa? And the reason we could go to college and live together while I was a student was thanks to the money they provided.
We don't owe you anything, and we already paid back the living expenses and tuition Grandma and Grandpa covered by working. Now we're trying to figure out how to repay the favors we still owe them. Millie and I kicked Dad out of the house together. Closing the front door, we both felt refreshed. You were right, Millie. Seems like they won't just have a poor retirement, but much worse.
I only thought they would get divorced and cut off by us and the relatives.
I never imagined they'd run out of money and hit retirement at 60 either. We laughed together at the entrance over failing to predict our parents' futures. After that, Mom seemed to give up on relying on us, not contacting or coming by anymore. However, Dad didn't give up, coming to our place many times. Even when ignored at home, he started loitering around and ambushing us outside. I had no choice but to report a suspicious person hanging around and causing trouble. Dad is a weirdo, so I don't think that's inaccurate. With a man stalking 2 women, the police took swift action. The police must have warned Dad, as he finally gave up on us. The fact that our parents tried to abandon Millie is well known among relatives through me and our grandparents, so no one will likely help them. And since the reason for their divorce was an affair, they probably won't reconcile either. They'll struggle without money, but from now on they can each slowly live out their retirement years alone. Sometime later, Millie and I started living separately. Millie was getting married. An office romance, and he apparently understands her condition. I'm a bit frustrated Millie beat me to it, but I'll congratulate her to maintain my dignity as the older sister. Just past 6 p.m., I heard the door opening from the entranceway. Our eldest son, Sam, was under the impression that we, his parents, were out attending a concert, unaware that it was a trap. Lately, we've noticed the disappearance of brand-name bags, accessories, and even the cherished watch that belonged to my late father.
It seems like no one's home, just like you said over the phone.
Sam, reassured, took out his smartphone and started making a call to someone. We were hidden, watching him closely. Kate? It's me. Just got to my parents' house. It seems the person on the other end was our daughter-in-law, Kate.
Really? No one's there?
Kate's voice filled the silent house. Sam has always had this odd habit of putting the phone on speaker mode when making calls. Oblivious that their own son is doing this to them, they're leisurely enjoying a concert.
It's fine. Thanks to that, we get to have our little feast. Besides, what do an old couple with not much time left need with luxury brands anyway? They just get in the way.
Exactly. Dad and Mom have money but hardly ever spend it.
That's right. What's the point of keeping brand goods locked up in a closet? We're the ones putting it back into the economy by selling them.
Remember that watch from last time? Sold it for $35,000. Wasn't expecting much for Grandpa's old thing, but it turned out quite well.
That fetched a decent price. Contributing to us even after he's gone, Grandpa really was the best.
They laughed loudly together. My name is Mary. I'm a 62-year-old housewife who works a part-time job 3 to 4 times a week. I live with my husband, Mike, who's 3 years my senior. Mike has worked in trading companies for many years. Even during the bubble economy, when everyone around was reveling, Mike, always serious, would say as he focused on his work from morning till the end of the day, "If we don't work hard now, we'll suffer later." He always said this as if it were a habit, and worked hard from morning until his scheduled time. Standing by such a husband, I've decided not to rely solely on his pension and work as long as I can, thus I work at a nearby supermarket. While I hope it helps with our living expenses, more than that, I love working. Chatting about trivial matters with regular customers or having coffee with fellow part-timers, I feel much freer and happier than staying cooped up at home. I don't consider myself serious by nature, but apparently, we're a couple of similar dispositions. Must have caught on from Mike. I sometimes joke. Mike, who was devoted to his work, has a hobby, photography. He was keen enough to join the photography club during his student days and even submit to local photo contests. Right after retiring, he bought a new camera and exclaimed,
"All right. Now I can enjoy taking pictures and live a free, slow life."
I don't know much about cameras or how much it cost, but luxury was never a part of Mike's life.
A bit of indulgence as a retirement gift is okay, isn't it?
We have 2 adult children, both independent and married. Our house has become quite silent, but since our children live only 7 to 8 stations away, they find time to visit us now and then, so I've never felt lonely. Our daughter, Ellie, met a man at work, got married, and had a child. She seems busy juggling work and child rearing, but on weekends, we enjoy lunch at our favorite cafe near the station.
"Mom, you've got to hear this."
She vents about her husband, her mother-in-law, her job, all the frustrations accumulated over time. Yet, by the time we part ways, her face always clears up.
"See you next week then."
Ellie's words carried no malice towards anyone, which reassured me that despite the complaints, she seemed to be living happily. On the other hand, our eldest son, Sam, is married too, but he rarely talks about his married life, so I don't know much about it. Sometimes, Sam brings his daughter-in-law, Kate, to visit, and it seems like he is whipped by Kate. Sam has always been introverted, not one to express his opinions clearly.
"Sam needs a strong-willed woman like Kate,"
Mike blurted out about Ellie once. That's why I've decided not to meddle too much in Sam and his wife's affairs. Then, one day, we received news that Mike's former boss had passed away. Mike, looking downcast, said, "He was a great man.
"Taught me everything from scratch when I was just starting out and knew nothing."
He reminisced about the distant past. As Mike was getting dressed in a suit he took out of the closet, he suddenly asked,
"Hey, have you seen my tie?"
He had finished changing into his shirt and pants and was just about to tie his necktie when he came downstairs.
"Aren't the ties always in the drawer?"
The place for storing ties had always been fixed, and they were never stored elsewhere after coming back from the cleaners.
"Did you check all the way at the back of the drawer?"
I wondered if it was pushed too far back and became hard to see from the front.
"Of course I checked. But I still can't find it."
Just to be sure, I also went upstairs and checked the drawer, but as Mike said, the tie was nowhere to be found.
"That's strange. It should always be here."
Saying that, I stared at Mike's profile.
What? Stop staring at me like that.
Mike looked back at me, puzzled.
Are you sure you don't remember? Maybe you accidentally put it somewhere else after it came back from the cleaners? Why would I do that?
The frustration of not finding the supposed tie combined with the urgency of the funeral's approaching time made Mike raise his voice more than necessary.
Sorry, I just snapped.
Mike apologized sincerely, but I was more concerned about.
Are you really okay, dear?
I was worried whether Mike had already started to forget things. Sensing my concern,
Hey, I'm not senile yet,
he strongly retorted. We emptied the drawer and checked everything again, but still, no tie was to be found. Just in case, I checked other drawers as well, and then I realized a fact.
This is strange. It's not just the tie that's missing. Really? Indeed. The ring Grandma gave me and the necklace are also gone.
Should we check other places as well?
Yes. It's scary to think that there might be more missing items.
We thoroughly searched the closets and storage shelves.
My handbag is gone too. And the shoes Ellie gave me for my birthday. They were all expensive brand items.
The travel bag I used for business trips is missing too. I hadn't used it for a while, but planned to take it on a trip with you someday. It was expensive. A dark cloud seemed to spread in my heart.
Could it be a burglary?
Should we report this to the police? Mike agreed immediately, but then regained his composure and said,
No, let's first check if the debit cards are missing.
We'll report to the police after confirming that. The debit cards were still in their usual place. Good. It doesn't seem to be a burglary. I was relieved, but not completely at ease.
But if it wasn't a burglary, why have only Mike's tie and the luxury items disappeared?
However, Mike, reassured by the fact that the debit cards were still there, said,
It's odd that the brand items are gone, but they'll turn up eventually.
Then, looking at his watch,
We're running out of time for the funeral. Didn't we have an old tie somewhere?
That won't do. Its color has faded, and it's not presentable in public anymore.
So, what do we do now? Forget the tie. We'll buy one on the way there.
That's probably best. Mike hurriedly left the house. Although Mike had said things would turn up eventually, I kept replaying his words in my mind.
Maybe we just misplaced them and forgot.
Trying to convince myself that. I wondered if there had been any event recently that would have caused us to move everything around in the house. But I couldn't remember anything. Could it be that I'm starting to forget things too?
Oh no. Am I starting to forget things too? Both of us together.
Overwhelmed by anxiety, I called Ellie as dusk fell. Mom, what's up?
Sorry to bother you, especially when you're busy. I really feel bad about it.
Ellie must have just come back from work, tired. Thinking about her preparing dinner and bathing the children, I felt somewhat hesitant to rely on her.
Something odd happened at home.
I told Ellie about all the brand items that had gone missing from our house.
The debit cards were left untouched, right? That is indeed strange.
Then, after a moment of thought on the other end, Ellie suggested,
Why don't you try installing surveillance cameras? Aren't those expensive?
Don't worry. The cameras these days are more affordable and high performance compared to before.
Plus, they come with features that allow you to check the footage anytime via a smartphone app. That does sound convenient. But it's also kind of scary. What if it captures some stranger lurking around?
Ellie laughed it off. That's exactly why you install surveillance cameras. Seeing my hesitation, Ellie excitedly proposed. Let's do this. I'll buy a surveillance camera to try out. I was planning to go to the store tomorrow because the air conditioner is acting up. I'll pick up a camera while I'm there. Ellie then installed the purchased cameras in every room of our house. There we go. I'll check the footage daily through the smartphone app.
I really appreciate it. I'm glad you turned out to be such a caring daughter.
Mom, you're exaggerating. With those words, Ellie left with a bright smile. A week later, the previously cheerful Ellie called with a heavy tone.
I have something important to discuss, so I'm coming over tonight.
Despite it being a weekday, Ellie left work early to come to our house. It seemed there was an emergency that took precedence over her own family.
Please don't be shocked, but listen.
Ellie started gravely.
Sam has been snooping around the house.
I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Holding the spare key to our house, Ellie continued.
This key isn't just with me, right? Sam has one too.
Indeed, Ellie could use that spare key to enter our house. The same was true for Sam, our child, just like Ellie. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to simply nod in agreement.
Sam wouldn't do such a thing. I understand you want to believe in Sam. He's my brother too, and I don't want to believe he would do something like this.
Before showing me.
But, Mom, can you still say the same after seeing this?
Ellie then showed me a video on her smartphone. It was footage recorded by the surveillance camera.
I'll spare you the details, but the person in this footage is Sam, sneaking around the house when you and Dad are out, and not just once, but 3 times in 1 week.
The quality of surveillance camera footage these days is much clearer than it used to be. No matter how much I wanted to deny it.
It's not Sam. It's someone else entirely.
The evidence was too clear to ignore. It was unmistakably Sam.
I didn't want to believe it at first, but with such clear footage, it's hard to defend him.
I still wanted to believe in Sam, even if just a little. But if all these mysterious disappearances were indeed Sam's doing, everything made sense. Stealing debit cards would have immediately alerted us and involved the police. But the disappearance of items we wouldn't regularly check, like handbags and accessories, could go unnoticed for a while. Or we might never have realized it at all. Sam was counting on that.
Could it be even that too?
I pulled out a small box from the back of the closet and opened it.
It's gone. The watch that was supposed to be in here has disappeared. That watch, it was Grandpa's favorite, wasn't it?
Ellie murmured, looking at my father's portrait. My father, Ben, to whom Ellie refers as her grandfather, was known as a serious and strict figure at work, feared by many, but he was gentle with his family. Without any particular hobbies, Ben's pride was the watch he always wore. I felt a surge of anger towards Sam for taking Ben's beloved watch without permission.
Unforgivable. To steal Ben's precious watch. Even if he is our son, I won't let this go easily.
Mike was even more visibly furious than I was. Ben had doted on Mike like his own son, often taking him out for drinks.
Ben was always so good to me. His words saved me whenever work got tough.
Mike said, reminiscing about Ben, tears rolling down his cheeks. Clenching his fists tightly, he declared,
Sam is disregarding Ben's way of life. I absolutely cannot forgive him.
Mike was ready to confront our son and his wife with fury. As Mike stormed towards the entrance with heavy steps, Ellie and I desperately held him back.
Please calm down, Mike. I understand how you feel, but we need to ascertain the truth first. The footage clearly shows it. Isn't that enough evidence? It's too early for that. If it's said that Sam was only temporarily taking them, that's the end of it.
Mike bit his lip in frustration and asked,
So, what should we do? I have a suggestion.
Ellie said, calming the enraged Mike. She looked at both Mike and me, then spoke slowly for us to understand.
We set a trap for Sam.
The next day, I casually called Sam, pretending everything was normal.
Mike got some concert tickets from an old colleague. He's invited me out for an evening. It's been a while since we've gone out together.
On the other end, Sam, without any hint of suspicion.
That's great. Have a good time together. Dad has been working hard all these years, after all. Now's the time to relax and enjoy some quality time as a couple.
For someone who usually spoke little, Sam's verbosity surprised me.
It's clear Sam wants to keep Dad and Mom away from the house. His true motives are obvious,
Ellie whispered from behind. After hanging up, I was overwhelmed with a sense of emptiness for having to deceive Sam and sadness from his betrayal.
Anyway, as soon as it gets dark this evening, we'll turn off all the lights and make the house look empty. We'll make Sam believe no one's home.
Mike and I nodded in agreement. As evening fell, we turned off all the lights in the house.
Everything's set now.
In the darkness, lit only by moonlight, we waited in silence for the unsuspecting Sam to arrive. Just past 6 p.m., we heard the door opening from the entrance. Sam had fallen for Ellie's trap without realizing it.
Mom? Dad?
It's me, Sam. You're not here, right? You went out to the concert, didn't you? Even though he knew no one was there, Sam talked to himself, probably checking if anyone was left inside. It could be a ritual before he began his theft.
Just like you said on the phone, it seems no one's home.
Sam, reassured, took out his smartphone and started making a call. We watched him closely from our hiding spot.
Kate?
It's me, Sam. I've just arrived at my parents' house. The person on the other end seemed to be our daughter-in-law, Kate.
Really? No one's there?
Kate's voice echoed through the silent house. Sam has always had this peculiar habit of using speaker mode during calls. It's all clear.
I've called out several times to make sure no one's here.
Sam replied with a laugh.
Unaware their own son is doing this to them, they're leisurely at a concert. That's fine. Thanks to that, we get our chance. Besides, what do an old couple nearing the end of their lives need with luxury brands anyway?
Exactly.
Dad and Mom have money but never spend it. Right? Keeping luxury brands in the closet without using them makes no sense. It's when we sell them and turn them into cash that we can actually contribute to the economy of this country.
Speaking of which, that watch sold for $35,000.
Didn't expect much from Grandpa's old-fashioned watch, but it turned out to be quite a thing. Well, isn't that something? Contributing to us even after his death, Grandpa really was the best.
They said, laughing loudly together.
Well, shall we get started?
After ending the call, Sam, as if gearing up for a big task, started rummaging through closets and drawers.
I've checked here before. These look old and probably won't fetch much. This could bring in a decent sum if sold.
Sam muttered to himself while searching for valuable items. It seemed he had already stolen the apparently valuable items.
Looks like we're running out of stock,
Sam said to himself, tossing a wooden sculpture, whose value was uncertain, into a sports bag he had prepared. Just then, all the lights in the house turned on simultaneously.
What? What's happening?
Sam exclaimed, sounding almost like a scream.
Sam!
Ellie burst out of the room she was hiding in, and upon seeing her, Sam panicked and tried to flee. However, he was easily caught by Mike, who had been hiding in another room.
Let go! I was wrong. I'll confess everything. Ouch! To think our own son was stealing from us. There's nothing more heartbreaking.
Sorry, Mom. Sam, drained of any energy to make excuses or resist, sincerely apologized.
Tell us everything honestly. Why did you do such a foolish thing? You were never someone to steal from others.
Mike looked down at Sam with pity, pressing him for answers. Life was tough. Sam began in a low voice. It all started when Kate's spending became increasingly reckless.
Think about our living situation a bit.
Sam, working in sales at a small company, was feeling the strain as expenses exceeded income.
Don't take away my joy in life. I don't want to end as a woman controlled by a poor man like you. If you don't like it, let's get divorced. There are plenty of men who would want me.
Kate had even hinted at divorce, and Sam, completely smitten by her.
I just didn't want to get a divorce.
Unbelievable. Ellie sighed deeply, holding her forehead.
So, you started stealing valuable things while Dad and Mom were away? I can't believe it. I planned to redeem the pawned items with the money I made. But Kate's spending only increased, and the money never grew. In desperation, I turned to gambling in casinos, hoping for a quick fortune, only to sink deeper. You both are fools.
I was too stunned to even feel angry anymore. We then instructed Sam to call his wife Kate over. Sam, looking pale.
Please, not that.
But reluctantly agreed, realizing that addressing the root cause was the only way to solve the problem.
You don't have a choice. Just follow our instructions.
After getting scolded by Mike, Sam has no choice but to call Kate.
Those were just unwanted items, right? We were merely putting them to good use. You should be thanking us.
Kate, far from showing any remorse upon discovering everything was out, aggressively justified their actions.
Is this even a crime? It's not, right? It's a family matter. The police won't interfere with such. Don't you even know that?
Kate, confidently misusing legal terms, smiled smugly at Ellie. I laughed mockingly, replying with a smile.
Indeed, it might be difficult to punish you criminally. But civilly, that's a different story.
Kate faltered for a moment but quickly recovered.
That's just shallow knowledge from amateurs. When we hire a skilled lawyer, it'll be you, Mary, who'll be embarrassed in court.
While impressed by the articulate daughter-in-law, I shared.
The original owner of the watch you pawned, Ben, was a famous lawyer representing America.
Looking at Ben's portrait, I said, and Sam, with a look of surprise, responded.
I've never heard such a story before. You were too young to remember, but journalists and TV crews used to come to our house every day.
Come to think of it, I do have a vague memory of something like that.
So what? What does Ben being a renowned lawyer have to do with you? After all, you're just a layperson when it comes to the law.
Kate expressed her anger openly.
Kate, listen to the end of what people have to say.
I silenced Kate and then continued.
The truth is, I admired Dad and once aspired to be a lawyer myself. I rented an apartment to study for the bar exam, but the path to becoming a lawyer was narrower than I thought. After failing several times, I met Mike and ended up getting married. It's true, if you call me an amateur, but I do have more legal knowledge than most people. And I'm quite confident I could win a civil case against you too. But
Kate was left speechless, without a comeback. The next day, I promptly sought advice from one of my father's old lawyer friends about our situation.
Are you sure this is what you want?
The lawyer carefully confirmed my intentions, to which I replied,
Even if he's my own son, I've decided not to hold back.
My anger towards Sam and Kate's excessive actions had reached its peak. Together with the lawyer, I proceeded with the civil lawsuit proceedings without hesitation. Sam and Kate were forced out of the apartment they were living in.
Mom, are you really going to go that far?
Sam complained over the phone.
That apartment was rented under Mike's name, wasn't it?
Then you have no right to complain. I coldly rebuffed Sam. Losing their place to go, Sam and Kate apparently headed to Ellie and her husband's apartment, but they were so persistent that my husband lost his temper and called the police. Ellie amusingly reported this during our weekend lunch. Later, Sam and Kate found a small apartment to live in, but Kate ended up cheating and ran away.
Men should be rich and handsome, after all.
She left Sam with those parting words. The rumor of his wife leaving spread quickly at work, and unable to bear the stares, Sam was driven to resign. At that point,
maybe we went a bit too far in teaching them a lesson.
We felt. After losing both his job and his family, Mike called Sam and set a condition.
From now on, you'll change your ways, work hard, and you yourself will buy back that pond watch.
On that condition, Sam was allowed to live with us again. Since then, Sam has been working diligently at a construction company introduced by Mike, without a single complaint. One day, Mike, with a sly grin, said,
"Take a look at this,"
and discreetly showed me a familiar watch from his pocket.
"Oh, Dad's."
In truth, Mike had already bought back Ben's watch from the pawn shop.
"Since Sam is trying to work hard, let's keep the watch a secret for now."
That sounds good. A secret shared between us as a couple. Looking at the watch, I mused.
We can't turn back the hands of time, but I believe we can regain lost trust. Though, it might not be easy.
Yes. Mike smiled gently in agreement.
"Here, this is for you, Mom."
Emma said so, but then in the next moment, she flipped the stew onto the floor.
"What?"
It was the first time my son, Michael's family, had come over to our house. I was preparing dinner with Stella, my daughter-in-law, and Emma, my 3-year-old granddaughter. But then Emma, instead of placing the stew at Stella's seat, deliberately spilled it on the floor. It wasn't because she tripped or slipped. She clearly did it on purpose.
"Wasting food like that. Why would you do something like this?"
I couldn't help but scold Emma harshly.
"Because I thought it was easier for Mom to eat."
Startled by being scolded, Emma said, crying and shaken.
"Easier to eat?"
I couldn't believe Emma's words and unconsciously repeated them.
"Mom always eats on the floor."
"What do you mean?" Sobbing, Emma tried to explain. Hearing Emma's surreal words, I looked at Stella to question her. Seeing Stella with a pale face and her shoulders shrunken, I felt she was hiding something. "Good morning." Today, as always, while looking at the portrait of my deceased husband, I greeted. I have been living alone since my husband Ian passed away a few years ago. The expression on Ian's face in the portrait is grumpy, with a deep furrow between his brows. Thinking back, I hardly ever saw him smile during his lifetime. Our marriage was arranged, and from the beginning, we were careful with each other. We barely spoke, each of us strictly keeping to our roles. A happy marriage seemed far from achievable, and we never went out together even on holidays. At that time, I didn't have friends to call my own, and of course, it was a time when there were no mobile phones, so I came to think that's just what marriage was. Ian would lock himself in his room or go out alone on weekends, coming back late at night. And sometimes we wouldn't even talk at home, always an icy atmosphere prevailing. Yet, my in-laws were persistent in wanting to see a grandchild. Suspecting illness due to the lack of childbirth news, they urged me to go to the hospital repeatedly. Ian, for his part, seemed annoyed being nagged, shared the bedroom with me just for one night. Luckily, I became pregnant and decided to pour all my love into raising the child. Ian showed no interest even as my belly grew, mercilessly assigning me household chores even when I was immobilized by morning sickness and wasn't even there for the birth of our child. When I was too exhausted and asked Ian for help, he dismissed me by saying he was busy. However, when our son Michael was born, Ian changed as if he were a different person and actively involved himself in parenting. For the first time, Ian suggested we go shopping together with Michael.
What kind of picture books should we read to Michael?
I couldn't hide my joy and spoke to Ian more than usual.
Wouldn't this outfit look nice on him?
Contrary to my excitement, Ian still had an angry look. He hardly responded and dismissed all my choices with a sigh and told me that he would decide everything. I wanted us to cooperate in parenting, but Ian rejected everything I tried to do or say.
Only a man can understand what a boy needs.
And eventually, even when feeding Michael, he said he wanted to focus on the meal, so he moved to a separate room. Ian was quite strict about everything from how to hold a fork and a knife and to the order of eating. It took 6 months before Ian approved of Michael's eating manners and allowed him to eat with me. The first time I saw Michael eat, I was astonished by how neatly he did it. He never complained or showed weakness, focusing solely on his studies and not playing with friends.
Michael, well done. Why don't you take a break sometimes?
I tried to comfort Michael with some cake as a snack while Ian was away.
Sweets aren't good for the body.
He refused without even glancing my way. As Michael entered high school, he joined the baseball team, wanting to train his spirit, and became a star pitcher of the team. Even after that, thanks to his disciplined effort, he tackled everything with all his might and graduated top of his class from a prestigious university known for its difficulty. Raised by the strict Ian, Michael grew up to be so graceful in his movements that people passing by on the streets would stop and stare. It seems he was even approached by several women for dates. I once saw Michael sighing to himself.
Michael, isn't there someone you're interested in? I find it more meaningful to spend my time honing myself, rather than romance.
His response to my casual question was marked by an even deeper sigh. Eventually, Michael made neither friends nor lovers, always a lone wolf, establishing himself as an object of admiration from afar. After university, he landed a job at a major publishing company, enviable to many. The publishing company kept him busy, and Michael lived a life of constant business trips, hardly ever returning home. He woke up early every morning and returned home on the last train. With such a lifestyle, he had no chance for encounters, dedicating his days to work alone. Even the formidable Ian would be asleep by the time Michael came home, so I secretly prepared snacks for him.
A man's body is his capital.
Ian had always fed Michael a perfect meal of 1 soup and 1 dish, and so he was forbidden snacks, especially midnight snacks. However, no matter how balanced the diet, it was clear that the hard-working Michael was gradually losing weight due to insufficient nutrition.
He's going to collapse if he keeps this up.
Michael initially refused the midnight snack, wanting to go to bed early. But one day, after exchanging such words several times, Michael's stomach growled loudly, cutting off his words.
"The stew is ready," I said. "I want to go to sleep." "See, the stomach doesn't lie,"
I gently told Michael, who turned bright red and looked down.
"Is it really okay for me to eat?" "Of course. I made it for that reason. Thank you."
With a slightly trembling voice, Michael carefully brought the spoon to his mouth. Then, with his spoon in his mouth, Michael froze.
"Michael, what's wrong?" "It's delicious."
It seemed the taste was shockingly good for Michael. He devoured the steaming stew, even asking for seconds. After finishing 3 plates, Michael showed a smile I had never seen before.
"Ah, this is the best feeling. I didn't know there was something this delicious. You've worked hard every day. I'll prepare a snack for you tomorrow night, too."
From that day on, Michael began to eat the midnight snacks I prepared with curiosity. Thanks to that, Michael's weight returned to normal, unbeknownst to Ian. The time for midnight snacks, the only time Michael and I spent together, became the time I also looked forward to as well.
"Mom, what's for tonight's snack?" Tonight, it's ramen. Ramen. I've been wanting to try that.
For Michael, who had never eaten out, the midnight snacks I made were all first-time experiences. Every time, Michael would light up like a child and eagerly eat up the meal. And so, seeing Michael off to work in the morning as usual became part of my daily routine. Michael, having regained his health, made significant progress at work, becoming regarded as the star in the company. This led to a series of invitations from women, it seems. Seeing this, Ian, perhaps unable to stand it, recommended an arranged marriage, and quickly, the discussions concluded, and Michael ended up getting married without any prior dating experience. Michael married Stella, a woman who worked as a secretary to the president of a famous company. Though she was of a quiet demeanor, she appeared to be a polite, serious person.
I am inexperienced, so I ask for your kindness.
At our first meeting during the introduction, Stella greeted us politely, a rarity these days.
I will do my best to be a good wife and support Michael.
Stella smiled softly, narrowing her beautiful eyes, and I thought she looked as beautiful as a blossoming flower.
We're going to be family, so don't hesitate to rely on us for anything.
Happy as if I had gained a daughter, I exchanged contact information with Stella and told her so. Stella, coming from a family that lived a bit far away, nodded happily to my words.
Thank you very much. It's very reassuring.
Then, the newlyweds moved to the neighboring town. Anticipating they might have a lot of unfamiliar things to deal with in their new life, I decided to frequently send messages via mobile phone. However, when I asked if they needed any help, Stella, who was already domestic and skilled in household chores, seemed to have quickly won over Michael's heart. It appeared Michael often had to go on business trips due to work, but they seemed to get along well, going shopping together on holidays. Not only that, but Stella also took care of me by giving me candies when I had a sore throat or recommending a good plaster when I mentioned I had hurt my back, always considerate towards me. She would quickly reply to my messages, so I thought there was no need to worry. When I told Ian about Michael and Stella, he nodded as if to say, of course, making me completely at ease.
I'm happy to see them so happy.
Michael and Stella were blessed with a daughter named Emma in their 4th year of marriage, bringing me great joy. And I think even Ian softened a bit. However, life doesn't always continue happily. Before Emma turned 2, my Ian suddenly collapsed. Ian, who had lived a life rarely seen smiling, seemed to have been unknowingly harboring stress. By the time he was advised to be hospitalized, it was too late, and cancer had spread throughout his body. And so, Ian passed away, leaving us behind. After the funeral, as I started living alone, messages from Stella, which used to come frequently, gradually became scarce. Even when I offered to help with childcare, I was gently refused, not wanting me to go through the trouble. It started after Ian's funeral. Stella suddenly began acting strangely, and when I inquired about Emma or their life, her responses were curt, and sometimes there was no reply at all. She wouldn't answer phone calls, and I worried every day. Feeling the distance between Stella, Emma, and myself, time passed, and before I knew it, Emma was 3. Thinking at least for Emma's 3rd birthday, I decided to send a message about having a meal at my house.
Happy 3rd birthday to Emma. Have you gotten used to parenting?
Yes, thank you. It's been a while since we've seen each other. How about a meal at my place? No, thank you. Stella's cold reply made me sigh.
I haven't had much to look forward to since I became alone. I want to celebrate my first grandchild's 3rd birthday.
After sending such a message, perhaps my feelings got through, as she curtly replied, "All right, we'll go." I had doubts about Stella's sudden consent, but the joy of meeting Emma soon dispelled them. And finally, the day of the family meal arrived. "Stella, it's been a while." I greeted Stella and her somewhat tense family with a smile. "Sierra, it's been a while. Thank you for inviting us today." Wondering if they were nervous after such a long time, I let them into my house.
Come on, Emma, say hello to Grandma.
Emma, who had been shyly hiding behind Stella, came forward quietly when encouraged and bowed politely. Grandma, hello. Contrary to Stella's uneasy and somber demeanor, Emma greeted me with a bright smile. Emma, hello. I made stew today, let's eat together.
Yay! I love stew.
It was the first time I had seen Emma since she was just a baby. I was worried she might be shy, but Emma's cheerful and innocent demeanor lifted some of my anxiety. However, Stella, hunched over and unusually vigilant, was not the Stella I knew. She used to be considerate and attentive to her surroundings. While I was concerned about Stella, I decided to wait and see, understanding she might have things she didn't want to talk about.
Where's Michael?
Stella, looking unsettled, scanned the inside of the house.
Oh, Michael will be coming directly from his business trip, so he'll be late. I received a message. Stella, you didn't know? That's right. I'm sorry, I might have missed the message.
Stella seemed relieved for a moment and hastily checked her mobile phone as if to hide her expression. I'm sorry, I had a message too. I can't believe I missed it. I feel like a failure as a wife. Stella's blue face and the way she berated herself seemed excessive to me. The message had just come in, so there was no need to worry so much. However, I didn't press further in front of Emma.
It's not your fault, it's okay. Sit down, and I'll reheat the stew.
Sorry. Her voice was so low I had to ask again.
Stella, did you say something?
Nothing, it's nothing. Stella seemed even more withdrawn, making me feel she was hiding something from me. It was just a hunch, but these intuitions often prove correct.
I'll help you carry it.
Emma ran over with an innocent smile, cutting through the tense atmosphere.
Oh, thank you. But stay back from the stove, it's dangerous.
Emma's offer to help was impressively mature for a 3-year-old. Stella, meanwhile, sat down hesitantly and stared solemnly at her spoon.
Here you go, be careful, it's hot. Okay.
Emma energetically took her plate and slowly walked over to Stella. And then,
Here, this is for you, Mom.
Emma said, and in the next moment, did something unbelievable.
What?
Emma deliberately spilled the stew on the floor instead of placing it at Stella's seat. It wasn't because she tripped or slipped. She clearly did it on purpose.
Why would you do something like this? Wasting food.
I couldn't help but scold Emma harshly.
Because it's easier for Mom to eat.
Surprised by the scolding, Emma said, crying and shaken.
Easier to eat?
I couldn't believe Emma's words and repeated them unconsciously. Mom always eats on the floor.
Eating on the floor? What do you mean?
Mom always eats on the floor because Dad makes her. Emma tried to explain, sobbing. Hearing Emma's surreal words, I looked at Stella, who was trembling and pale.
Stella, what's going on?
Just as Stella was about to speak, the doorbell rang, and Michael appeared at the entrance. Despite the awkward timing, I quickly cleaned up the spilled stew and welcomed Michael in.
I'm home. Did something happen?
Michael seemed puzzled by the delay between the doorbell and the door opening.
Welcome back. I couldn't leave the stove.
I tried to act normally, hiding my agitation.
I see, is that stew I smell?
Yes, your favorite stew. I felt relieved I had made stew and breathed a sigh of relief. Unaware of anything, Michael cheerfully entered the living room, ignoring Stella's distress and sat down with a thud.
Nothing beats Mom's stew.
Michael spoke loudly while Stella bit her lip tightly. Feeling the tense atmosphere between them, I forced a smile, struggling to maintain a facade. I was skeptical about Michael making her eat on the floor, but I sensed their relationship wasn't good. The conversation remained superficial, the stew tasted bland, but somehow, the meal ended peacefully. After the Michael family left, I messaged Stella about the incident. The only reply I got was it's nothing. It can't be nothing. I murmured quietly to the mobile phone screen, reflecting on our interactions. Stella's messages have been cold lately. The distant replies didn't seem like they were coming from the caring Stella I knew. Thinking about the incident made me wonder if Michael was controlling her phone.
I can't overlook what just happened. I need to check on things myself.
With that thought, I decided to visit Michael's house. Even though it's spring, it was already dusk. I shivered in the cold air as I approached their house. Just then, I heard a loud argument.
It's your fault. What?
That was Michael's voice. Panicked, I pressed the doorbell. Michael, with a forced smile, greeted me.
Mom, we just said goodbye. What brings you back?
I need to talk to Stella.
What? Well, Stella's tired from the visit. I'll pass the message.
Michael blocked my way, visibly flustered.
This is an important matter between women.
My firm tone left Michael with no choice but to let me in.
Stella?
Looking around inside, I noticed the bathroom light was on.
I'm going in.
As I headed to the bathroom, Michael hurried after me, panicking.
Stella's in there. You can't go in now.
But I entered the bathroom before Michael could stop me. And what I saw was unexpected.
Stella!
Stella was in the shower, drenched, sitting on the floor.
Sierra. I was cleaning the shower and accidentally turned it on myself.
Stella weakly smiled as she spoke to me.
This is terrible. You'll catch a cold.
After finding a towel, I wrapped Stella in it, drying her hair and arms.
I can't believe this. Sorry, Mom. Stella always messes up when I'm not watching.
Michael didn't even attempt to get a towel, instead crossing his arms with an angry look. Stella was in a daze, quietly letting me help her. Seeing Stella's slight shivers, I couldn't deny Emma's words were true.
Stella, I've dried you off somewhat, but you need to change immediately.
Sierra, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Always like this.
Stella can't do anything without me. Michael complained, but Stella's fear was evident. Pretending to use the bathroom, I discreetly called the police, and soon the doorbell rang, signaling their arrival.
Who's that?
Michael answered reluctantly.
We received complaints about loud noises from this house.
The officer said, to which Michael lied about a misunderstanding. The officer insisted on speaking with us after checking the neighborhood.
Today's a bad day.
Scratching his head, Michael opened the door. 3 officers entered swiftly, one securing Stella and Emma while the others restrained Michael.
What?
Michael resisted desperately, but the officers were unfazed.
What the hell? What did I do?
He knew he couldn't fight off the police, but he still tried to make himself loose. To that the police said in a low voice,
If you don't calm down, you're obstructing the execution of our duties.
Michael turned pale and suddenly became quiet. Meanwhile, Stella, overwhelmed by the sudden events, saw the subdued Michael and burst into tears. Looking at me and the officers, she spoke quietly. I can't take it anymore. Stella revealed her pent-up frustrations.
As soon as we got married, he submitted my resignation without my consent. I protested to the CEO, but no one believed me.
Rumors had spread that Stella complained about her low salary and was unhappy with the CEO, none of which were true. Ultimately, her resignation was accepted despite her objections.
Life became hell after I became a housewife.
First, her mobile phone was taken away. In her unfamiliar married life, it seems Stella had many things she wanted to discuss with me or her parents, but Michael wouldn't listen.
Especially about meals. Whatever I cooked was always criticized as bad. I wanted to ask Sierra for recipes, but was told to figure it out on my own.
At first, it was just verbal criticisms, so Stella thought she could bear it.
Things got worse when Emma was born. He did help with childcare, but...
Michael appeared to be a kind and good father to Emma, but his verbal abuse towards Stella in her presence increased.
After Ian passed, the harassment intensified.
Verbal abuse became a routine. Stella was ordered to eat meals on the floor and endured days of being overworked by Michael. When they went shopping, she was only allowed to buy what Michael specified, limiting her outings to the bare essentials. Any slight dissatisfaction from Michael like a lightly cleaned area or a wrinkled shirt, resulted in Stella being doused with cold shower. Using water as a means of harassment left no physical marks. I had no one to turn to, it was so hard. Tears fell again from Stella's eyes. She confirmed my suspicions of her suffering under Michael's harassment. You've been enduring all alone. It must have been so hard. I regretted not noticing the signs earlier. As I comforted Stella, I reflected on my actions. Michael faced interrogation after everything was revealed. During the interrogation, Michael sat arrogantly, denying any wrongdoing. An officer, unable to overlook Michael's behavior, pressed him hard. Why Stella acted fearfully around Michael, and the reason Emma naturally spilled the stew on the floor were questioned. Even without visible marks, harassment traces could be investigated with modern medical technology, the officer sternly stated. Finally cornered, Michael confessed. I've been under a lot of stress. Michael murmured as if speaking to himself. He resented the strict discipline enforced by his father since childhood. He was strictly told about the order of the meal he ate and the right size he was supposed to eat in one bite. You can't even do this. Harsh scoldings for minor mistakes were part of his upbringing. Forced to learn kanji and English at a young age, Michael was made to revise tirelessly for any mistakes. In elementary school, while peers enjoyed games, Michael was sent to unwanted lessons and cram schools. He revealed his dissatisfaction with all of it. In high school, he was forced into a strict baseball team, despite having no interest.
The first time I played soccer during a break, I found it incredibly fun, but my father never allowed me to switch to the soccer team.
I was shocked by Michael's words. I trusted Ian to take care of meals in another room, never questioning it, and rejoiced at Michael's academic and extracurricular diligence.
All the times you were working so hard, it wasn't because you enjoyed those activities.
I didn't know Michael loved soccer and I was unaware of his interactions with Ian. I was just preparing lunches every day without knowing anything about my family.
I had no idea you felt that way, Michael. It's natural for you not to know. He said it was a man's promise and made me keep quiet.
Michael, adeptly trained mentally, easily maintained composure without my knowledge. He didn't enjoy studying either. He was restricted from popular student activities like gaming and fashion interests. And even his love for sweets was limited. Ultimately, an arranged marriage decided by Ian added to his growing resentment. Having the marriage arranged without his consent, Michael seemed to have started feeling indifferent about everything. Even after getting married and moving away, the pressure of being married to someone chosen by Dad made him feel monitored, and the curse lifted only after Dad's death.
I became obsessed with the idea that Stella should strive just like me.
That was how Michael concluded. I thought I had raised Michael together with Ian. I had no inkling Michael was enduring such hardship behind my back. The guilt and powerlessness overwhelmed me. Despite Michael and Ian keeping silent, I bear responsibility for not noticing.
Stella, this isn't something an apology can fix, but it was my fault for raising him poorly. I'm truly sorry.
No.
I'm the one who should apologize for not being able to heal Michael's heart.
Stella's words, ever so kind, made tears spill from my eyes.
Stella, you've done nothing wrong. I'm truly sorry for everything.
Afterward, Michael was arrested for assault. Having shared his burdens, he seemed somewhat relieved. He will now have time to reflect and make amends. Stella decided to divorce Michael, taking Emma back to her parents' home.
Sierra, thank you for everything. I haven't done anything worthy of your thanks.
I decided to support Stella and Emma financially in Michael's stead. Initially hesitant, Stella accepted after I expressed a desire to maintain a good relationship.
I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. I'll always consider you as my family. Thank you. Having a relationship with you and Emma is a great comfort to me.
Stella, having settled into her new life, seemed to regain her bright smile. I regularly received photos of Stella and Emma. She also invites me several times a year to visit Emma. Sierra, would you like to come over sometime? Emma misses you. Seasons have cycled through peaceful days since the incident. Emma started going to elementary school and even visited my house alone.
Exactly, Emma, you're doing great.
I was teaching Emma how to make hamburgers during one of her visits.
Grandma, this is fun.
Emma showed a carefree smile, shaping the hamburgers perfectly. Indeed, it's fun. It'd be nice if Mom could join us next time.
Yeah. I'll make a lot.
I deeply cherished these moments of happiness. Relieved that Michael hadn't inflicted lasting wounds on Emma, I wished for her to always be smiling. As we placed her small hamburgers in the pan, her eyes sparkled with anticipation for the completion of the meal.
May your life be filled with smiles from now on.
I whispered, as if making a vow.
I'm pregnant, so give me $3,000.
Laughing mockingly, Sierra extended her hand. I instinctively brushed it away.
There's no way I'm giving you that. And why does it have to be such a high amount?
To my question, Sierra sneered. Cute kids cost money.
You wouldn't understand. That kid's surely going to be cute like Sierra. Unlike someone, she's probably going to be a beauty.
Sierra and Rodney burst into laughter. I felt like my anger was about to explode. I just couldn't bear it anymore. Unintentionally, the words I'd been holding back slipped out.
Actually, about that kid.
As soon as they heard my words, Sierra turned pale, and Rodney looked shocked. Things went a bit differently than planned, but you could say it's a smooth start. But the real revenge starts now. They'll have to pay for what they did to Sis. Let them cry all night after losing everything. Well, that still wouldn't be enough for me. They might as well enjoy themselves for now. Because those smiles will soon fade away. Smiling to myself, I distanced myself from the quarreling Sierra and Rodney. My name is Hannah. I'm 33 and I work in a design office. Talking like this might give off a stylish, urban impression. But the reason I chose this path isn't so simple. To be honest, this was the only choice I had. That's the right way to put it. Actually, I have an older sister named Daisy. Daisy is 2 years older than me and could do anything. Compared to Daisy, who excels in both studies and sports, all I could do was draw. Illustration was the only thing I didn't lose against Sis. That was my only solace. But, don't get me wrong, it's not like I had a bad relationship with Daisy or my parents. My parents loved me equally, and Daisy and I still keep in touch frequently. That's why, when Daisy got divorced 4 years ago, I couldn't hide my shock. Moreover, the reason was Rodney's affair, and the other woman was my best friend, Sierra. Sis. I'm sorry. I'll cut ties with Sierra. The day I declared that to Daisy still haunts my dreams. I'll never forgive Sierra. That's how I still feel inside. By the way, I met Sierra when we were in elementary school. We were the same age and became classmates for the first time in the upper grades. Of course, being in the same grade, we knew each other's names and faces. But we never really had any contact. And that's why we never talked before. I'm Sierra. Nice to meet you. Sierra had a very refined appearance. Her voice was cute, and every gesture was adorable. Being approached by such a cute classmate, I became nervous.
What's wrong?
Well, it's just that you're so much cuter than me.
Me? Really?
Sierra asked, looking back at me. I nodded slightly. In that moment, Sierra hugged me and whispered in my ear with a smile.
I think you're cute too. Be confident.
Really? Yeah. Let's become best friends. And that's how we became best friends. Since then, Sierra was always by my side. When I was talked about behind my back at school, it was Sierra who defended me first.
There are kids saying bad things about Hannah, but let's not do that.
Sierra said confidently in front of our classmates. As expected, the classmates fell silent. The reason I was talked about, in fact, was because of Daisy's presence being known. Initially, many friends would say things like this to me. It's so cool to have a sis who's good at studying. Being the starting player, that's awesome. I was happy when Daisy was praised. It didn't bother me. But those words of praise for Daisy turned into backhanded comments about me. Her sister is terrible at both studies and sports. Being good at drawing, isn't that kind of lame? Of course, no one would say it to my face. They talked in whispers, hidden in the corners of the classroom. But, of course, I could hear them. However, it was the truth, so I couldn't deny it. It was frustrating, but it was the truth. All I could do was bear it. But, maybe sensing how I felt, Sierra spoke up for me. Moreover, perhaps to prevent the issue from lingering, Sierra didn't single out the culprits. That approach worked well, and the people who talked about me disappeared.
Thank you, Sierra. We're best friends. Of course I got your back.
Our bond grew even stronger. However, I learned the truth about that incident a year ago. It was during a reunion after a long time. A friend told me this story. The bad mouthing about me was instigated by Sierra. She defended me to gain my trust. Hearing that, I felt like my heart was about to burst with regret. If I had seen through the lie at that time, maybe sis wouldn't have divorced. Since learning that fact a year ago, I've found it even harder to forgive Sierra. Let me say this again, I only found out about this fact a year ago. So until the moment I heard about Daisy's divorce, I always thought of Sierra as my best friend. Even as we grew older, I believed Sierra was my best friend. That's why I accepted everything Sierra said without any doubt. You have a talent for illustration. You should definitely pursue that path.
Really? Do you think so? Go for it.
Sierra encouraged me. Thinking so, I enrolled in a design-focused university. Looking back, it might seem laughable. But back then, I believed Sierra's advice. However, there was one good thing. It was that I truly had a talent for illustration. After enrolling in university, my design talent blossomed, and I landed a job at a design office with top grades. On the other hand, Sierra joined a modeling agency after graduating high school. But she didn't make any spectacular achievements. She appeared in fashion magazines. But only a few times. That marked the end of Sierra's modeling career. Nonetheless, it's undeniable that Sierra was beautiful. As if leveraging her good looks, Sierra switched careers to a major apparel manufacturer. Then she started working as a salesperson at a clothing store the company operated. Being a former model, she indeed boosted the store's sales significantly. Thus, Sierra became a popular salesperson. Hearing the rumors, I visited Sierra.
Sierra, you seem to have become quite popular. Hannah, you came to see me.
Sierra rushed over. Being mindful of the surroundings, I nodded slightly.
By the way, how's your job, Hannah? Web design and stuff, pretty challenging, but I guess it's fulfilling. I see. Then I'll have to work hard too.
I thought she'd be down after quitting modeling, but she seemed just fine. As I was thinking, Sierra leaned in and asked,
"So, what are you here to buy today? If it's a new collection, I can help out and choose for you." No. It's not that. I'm actually looking for a present for sis. 2 years older, right? Is it her birthday or something?
Sierra smiled.
I replied a bit shyly. Actually, sis, she's getting married. Marriage? Congratulations! Thank you, but I'm not the one getting married. Right. Sorry.
We laughed together. Then I talked about Daisy's marriage. Daisy, who had just turned 28 a few days ago, went out for a meal with her partner Rodney. There, Rodney proposed to Daisy. Of course, Daisy accepted. Having heard the story the day before, I decided to celebrate Daisy's marriage. And after much deliberation, I finally decided to gift Daisy clothes. Considering the upcoming wedding preparations and meetings, Daisy would have more occasions to go out.
So, I was wondering if there's any nice outfit.
I see. Let me choose for you. Do you have a photo or something of Daisy? Show me. Sierra extended her hand. I sent a photo of Daisy, stored on my mobile phone, to Sierra. It was a picture Daisy had sent me. It probably had been taken during a recent date. The impressive illumination in the background was a hot topic, and it was a photo I particularly liked.
This illumination. It's really popular right now. Yup, exactly. We were talking about going there since everyone's buzzing about it.
I stopped mid-sentence and instinctively clamped my mouth shut. But it seemed too late. Sierra was looking at me with a laugh. Then, putting her hand to her mouth, she asked me,
I heard we were talking about going there. Do you have a boyfriend by any chance? Well.
My ears turned red with embarrassment. Having a boyfriend was a first for me. Sierra, who had been with me since elementary school, knew that. Of course, Sierra seemed happy for me. But all of it was just an act. When Daisy got divorced and I confronted Sierra, she confessed. Moreover, the photo I sent at that time turned out to be the catalyst for Sierra and Rodney's affair. And on top of that, Sierra had already known for a few days that I had a boyfriend. Apparently, Sierra had witnessed me and my boyfriend Denny on a date a few days before. She was plotting to steal Denny from me. This too was a confession from Sierra. In short, if I hadn't brought up Daisy's marriage, Sierra would have tried to take my boyfriend away. Because I showed Rodney's photo to Sierra, sis ended up divorcing. It goes without saying how much I regretted it, even though it was done unknowingly. Nonetheless, oblivious to everything, I presented the clothes chosen by Sierra to Daisy. Daisy was really pleased and even prepared for her wedding wearing that outfit. Looking back now, I believe that was probably the happiest time for Daisy. After a while, Daisy got married, but she gradually became gloomier. Since we both lived alone, we used to contact each other frequently. However, shortly after the marriage, Daisy started to contact me less often.
Maybe she's enjoying her married life?
I thought lightly. Then, unusually, Daisy called me.
Rodney might be having an affair.
Daisy's voice was terribly somber. I tried to comfort her desperately.
What do you mean? Are you sure it's not a misunderstanding?
I don't think it's a misunderstanding.
He's been coming home late, and he's not even home on his days off,
Daisy said and finally broke down in tears. In my eyes, Daisy always seemed like a strong person. But that Daisy was crying now. It made it clear to me that she was not okay.
Calm down, sis. Let's get to the bottom of this first.
I proceeded with an investigation into Rodney's conduct. If they could reconcile, that would be best. That's what I thought, but it backfired. The investigation I initiated led Daisy to discover Rodney and Sierra's affair. Hearing that fact, Daisy and I confronted Sierra together.
Sierra, what is this all about?
What?
There's nothing to it. Rodney and I are dating. That's all. But he's Sis's husband. Doesn't that make it an affair?
I confronted Sierra with a strong tone. But Sierra seemed unfazed.
An affair, sure, but what's the problem?
He prefers a beautiful woman, obviously. Sierra glanced at Daisy. Daisy quickly looked down. Indeed, Sierra was more beautiful than Daisy and I. But if you consider what's inside, Sierra is overwhelmingly inferior. At any rate, Sierra, who could cheat without remorse, was much uglier than Daisy. The argument with Sierra escalated, but she remained defiant throughout. Realizing we were getting nowhere, I decided to confront Rodney next. Rodney, too, was just as defiant.
Of course, I prefer beautiful women. When I'm seen with them, everyone envies me.
Rodney, do you really mean that?
Yeah, I mean it.
I prefer beautiful women. But I couldn't bring myself to ask why he married Daisy in the first place.
It's fine. I'll be reporting the affair to both of your companies. What? If you do that, we might lose our jobs. You should have thought of that before you did it.
I said it loudly. Sierra seemed a bit shaken, but Rodney remained nonchalant.
Hannah, you're so naive. An affair won't cost us our jobs. What? Unless it's a crime, an affair is a personal matter. It's a marital issue, so the company won't get involved.
It's true the company might think it's unsightly. But an affair isn't grounds for disciplinary action. I later found out that unless there are specific internal regulations, generally, affairs don't lead to disciplinary action. Sierra laughed triumphantly. And Rodney smirked disgustingly.
Well, that's the situation. The only thing you can do is break up with me,
Rodney said to Daisy. Daisy looked down, seemingly frustrated.
What are you so proud of? That's...
Before I could finish my sentence, Daisy grabbed my arm. In a voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz, Daisy said,
It's okay, Hannah. If I can get away from Rodney, that's enough.
In the end, Daisy got a settlement from Rodney through the divorce and left him. After that, Rodney apparently started dating Sierra. But I didn't care. I couldn't forgive Rodney nor Sierra. In place of Daisy, I vowed to seek revenge on the two of them. That was the only thing I was determined about. For years had passed since then. I never forgot about them for a moment.
The stage is set, now, brace yourselves.
On a certain holiday, I made up my mind and headed to a boutique in a bustling district. As I entered the store, I heard a female salesperson's voice. But I ignored it and approached two customers.
It's been a while.
Sierra. When I spoke, the woman turned around.
What? Hannah.
The surprised shopper was Sierra. Rodney next to her also turned around.
Oh, it's Hannah. You haven't changed much, or should I say, still unpolished.
I was irritated, but getting angry here would ruin the plan. I kept my cool and continued.
Both of you seem well. Sierra, have you gained a bit of weight? What? No way. I'm pregnant.
Sierra retorted. This reaction was as expected. This is where the real challenge begins. I braced myself to continue, but before I could speak, Sierra said this.
I'm pregnant, so give me $3,000.
Laughing, Sierra extended her hand. I instinctively brushed it away.
There's no way I'm giving you that. And why does it have to be such a high amount?
To my question, Sierra sneered.
Cute kids cost money. You wouldn't understand. That kid's surely going to be cute like Sierra. Unlike someone, she's probably going to be a beauty.
Sierra and Rodney burst into laughter. I felt like my anger was about to explode. I just couldn't bear it anymore. Unintentionally, the words I'd been holding back slipped out.
Actually, about that kid.
As soon as they heard my words, Sierra turned pale, and Rodney looked shocked. Things went a bit differently than planned, but you could say it's a smooth start. But the real revenge starts now. They'll have to pay for what they did to Sis. Let them cry all night after losing everything. Well, that still wouldn't be enough for me. They might as well enjoy themselves for now. Because those smiles will soon fade away. Smiling to myself, I distanced myself from the quarreling Sierra and Rodney. Then Sierra noticed me distancing myself. Pointing at me, Sierra raised her voice.
Why would you say such a thing to Rodney? That child isn't Rodney's child. What's that about?
Oh? But isn't it true?
It's definitely Rodney's child. We got married after all that.
Her loud shout drew the gaze of everyone in the store toward us. I glanced around a bit before stoking the fire further.
Is that so? Then that child's father is one of your affairs, right? But...
As Sierra tried to retort loudly, Rodney cut in.
Stop slandering. This child is mine. Are you going to ignore the fact that your wife is cheating, Rodney?
When I questioned Rodney, his face turned bright red.
Don't lie without any evidence. You're just trying to stir up trouble. That's right. Stop messing around.
Sierra also retorted with a flushed face. It's about time. I thought, looking around.
Well, causing a scene in the store is troublesome, So let's leave it at that. What? You started this. You know what? I'll sue you for defamation.
Rodney laughed.
That's a great idea. We could probably get about $10,000 out of it.
Even Sierra agreed with Rodney's suggestion. I sighed and responded.
Suit yourselves. But what if I actually have the evidence? What? Do you really have evidence of Sierra's affair? Well, who knows? I'll tell you the answer when we meet next. Bye for now.
With that, I quickly left the store. Behind me, I could hear Rodney's shouting voice.
Hey! Wait! We're not done talking.
I pretended not to hear and quickly moved away from the store. A few hours later, I was at home while changing clothes. My phone rang unexpectedly.
I knew you'd call me.
I answered the phone with a small laugh. Immediately, Rodney's voice rushed in, speaking rapidly.
Hey! About Sierra's affair, is it true? Answer me.
He reacted just as I had anticipated. I couldn't help feeling pleased. Doesn't he realize it's a trap? I sighed softly and responded.
The child in her belly might be yours, but there's also a good chance it belongs to her lover. So, the affair is real?
You're free to think that. I answered provocatively. After a brief silence, Rodney spoke in a low voice.
You have evidence, don't you? If you want, I might even give it to you.
I had directly accused Sierra of having an affair. Meaning, Sierra would now be on guard, making it impossible to gather further evidence of her cheating. So the evidence I might possess becomes Rodney's only hope. He's thinking exactly as I planned. Considering this, Rodney responded.
What should I do? What are your terms? Money? Of course not. I just want revenge.
If you leave Sierra, that's enough for me. Needless to say, that was a lie. I have no intention of forgiving Sierra, nor Rodney. But for now, I'll pretend to cooperate with Rodney. Only for the sake of what's to come.
Understood. So I just need to leave Sierra, right? It's simple, isn't it? If you get evidence of Sierra's affair, you'll gain freedom and a settlement from the divorce trial. Yeah. Let's meet and talk somewhere. Then, how about this coming Sunday?
I suggested a restaurant in the entertainment district. It has private rooms, suitable for confidential conversations. After specifying the place, I hung up the phone. Immediately after, Sierra called.
What's the meaning of this, Hannah? Why didn't you answer my call?
I'm busy too. I can't be at your beck and call.
Don't act so high and mighty.
I could hear Sierra grinding her teeth. I almost laughed.
So, what are you going to do about it? Because of you, Rodney and I are fighting. That's not my problem. It's your fault, isn't it?
Sierra is to blame for the affair. That's what I meant to say. But Sierra didn't care about that. She retorted sharply.
When are you going to take responsibility? Or maybe I should really sue you. Is that something a friend would say? Too bad, we're not friends. You said so yourself.
Sierra raised her voice in anger. I distanced the phone slightly. And then responded with a sneer.
Oh right, that's what I said. You're really infuriating. I should have made you cry more when we were in elementary school.
Sierra was breathing heavily. I thought, this is it, and played my trump card.
Oh? In that case, maybe I should just throw this away? The evidence of Rodney's affair. What? Rodney's affair?
Sierra's tone changed. Smirking at her reaction, I continued.
I couldn't find evidence of your affair, but I did get evidence of Rodney's. What do you mean?
Today's incident was a ploy to anger Sierra and make her call me. The real target is Rodney, who betrayed Daisy. I'll give Sierra the evidence of Rodney's affair. So, she can squeeze every penny out of Rodney through the divorce settlement. I made the whole thing up. But Sierra believed it.
All right, send me the evidence then. You want to meet and talk, right? How about this Sunday afternoon at a cafe? Fine. Bring me the evidence then. I'll make sure Rodney pays.
After hearing Sierra say that, I hung up the phone with a sneer. Then, the next Sunday, as the time to meet Sierra approached, I left the house.
The car's ready. Let's go.
Denny, who had left the house earlier, opened the car door. I got in with a smile. After getting out of the car, I headed alone to the cafe where we agreed to meet. Sierra was already there when I entered.
Sorry for being late.
That's fine.
Just show me the evidence already.
Sierra extended her hand. I looked towards the entrance. Seeing the person there, I smiled and said to Sierra,
Before that, a friend is here. Do you mind if he joins us? Is it your boyfriend? Denny, right? Close one. We're married now, so Denny is my husband.
Saying that, I gestured towards the entrance. Sierra also looked over, laughing. In that moment, Sierra turned pale. At the same time, a loud voice filled the cafe.
Sierra! You're back in the States!
A man approached from the entrance. He was slightly older than us, dressed in a suit.
What? Why is Alexander here?
Well, a friend wanted to introduce me to his wife. The man referred to as Alexander turned around. And there was Denny. Denny spoke to Sierra. Nice to meet you, I'm Denny, Hannah's husband. I brought your affair partner. Hearing those words, Sierra stood up. As she tried to flee, I grabbed her hand.
What's the matter? He's your affair partner, right? Introduce him. He's the father of your child in your belly? The child in your belly?
Alexander looked at Sierra's pregnant belly. Then he burst into joy.
You're pregnant with my child. That's why you said you were going abroad.
By the way, Alexander is definitely Sierra's affair partner. Moreover, Sierra lied about going abroad. In short, she was trying to hide her pregnancy and the birth of her child. Because it would be troublesome if a man who's not her husband showed up at the hospital. But then, Alexander realized something. He slowly asked Sierra,
Didn't someone mention me as your affair partner just now? No. It's about someone else.
Sierra started making excuses while getting flustered. So, I decided to step in.
It's all a lie. Sierra is married, and you are just an affair partner. Don't be fooled. Hannah, don't stir up unnecessary trouble.
Sierra tried to grab me, but in that moment, Alexander intervened.
Sierra, what's all this about?
Well, it's... Sierra started to say something, but Denny interrupted by showing a photo.
This is Sierra's husband. The rest is for you two to discuss. We'll be leaving now.
Denny took my hand, and we left the cafe. Later, I heard the cafe turned into a battlefield. Meanwhile, Denny and I headed to a nearby restaurant. Just as we arrived, Rodney also showed up.
Perfect timing, but who's that guy? He's my husband, Denny. I remember you had a fiancé.
I didn't want to have a long conversation right there, as it could lead to complications. I hurriedly urged everyone to enter the restaurant. Inside, we were led to a private room in the back. But then, the waiter said something unnecessary. Your companion is waiting inside. He said.
Is there someone else inside? A lawyer? Well, kind of.
It wasn't entirely wrong. I casually answered and entered the private room. Immediately, a woman's shrill voice was heard.
I've been waiting for you, Rodney. What? Layla!
Rodney seemed utterly shocked, nearly collapsing on the spot. Denny quickly supported Rodney. Then the woman called Layla spoke again.
Thank you for helping my fiancé. Well, it's nothing.
By the way, who might you be? Layla tilted her head. Her gesture was innocent as a young girl's. I felt it was cruel to make her cry, but I didn't hesitate to declare.
I'm Hannah, the sister of Rodney's ex-wife. And this is my husband, Denny. Oh, is that so? But why would the ex-wife's sister be here? Because I'm the one who invited you all here.
As soon as I said that, Rodney started to make a scene.
Shut up. Don't say anything unnecessary.
I won't say anything unnecessary. I'm just going to tell her that you're already married. The atmosphere froze at that moment. But I continued calmly.
After leaving my sister, Rodney remarried my best friend. Quiet. Don't say anything more.
Rodney continued to cause a commotion. Then Layla raised her voice.
Please be quiet. We're in the middle of a discussion.
Overwhelmed, Rodney closed his mouth. Seeing this, I continued.
Then, hiding the fact that he was already married, he started a relationship with you.
I narrated Rodney's current situation, his infidelities, and everything else. And ended with the fact that Rodney's current wife, Sierra, was pregnant.
So, you're saying I was being cheated on? Layla asked.
Well, yes, that's how it appears.
Regardless, it's good timing. My father is also here, so we can have a thorough discussion.
Layla gestured behind her. Looking back, there was a man with a fiery red face. So, that must be her father. I thought, and then Layla suddenly raised her voice.
You do know my father is a lawyer, right? Rodney, are you prepared?
Layla glared sternly at Rodney. Rodney, slightly intimidated, began to make excuses.
It's not like that. My wife Sierra has been cheating, and I was planning to divorce her. So, you're not yet divorced? No. I mean, that's enough. I will sue you,
Layla declared, and at that moment, Layla's dad grabbed Rodney.
So you're the father? Nice to meet you.
Rodney tried to smooth things over with a greeting. But it was futile. The room erupted into chaos, so Denny and I retreated outside. There, I told the staff who had rushed over due to the commotion.
There's a disturbance inside. Please call the police.
With that, the staff member called the police. The police arrived promptly. Later, we were also questioned, but ultimately it was treated as a family dispute and ended with a stern warning. However, while most were let off with that, it was not the end for Rodney. The police involvement became a problem at his workplace. Of course, the cause of the disturbance was thoroughly investigated. As a result, the affair came to light. Naturally, an affair alone would not lead to dismissal. But the company took issue with the police involvement. In the end, Rodney was pressured to submit his resignation and reluctantly left the company.
It's your fault. What are you going to do about it? If you feel bad, lend me some money. If you keep bothering me, I'll call the police, okay?
After that, he never contacted me again. It seems he really learned his lesson. Later, Rodney was sued by Layla and had to pay a hefty settlement. Sierra also had troubles with Alexander. Though she avoided a lawsuit, she was still required to pay compensation. Burdened with debt, Rodney and Sierra blamed each other and decided to divorce. They're now engaged in a bitter divorce battle. I doubt either will get any money in the end. By the way, to cover the legal costs and living expenses, they're both working at a well-paying construction site. I hope this time they truly reflect on their actions. Meanwhile, I reported the whole saga to Daisy over the phone.
That must have been tough. Are you okay, Hannah?
I'm fine. So, sis, just focus on delivering a healthy baby. Actually, after her divorce, Daisy remarried a former classmate she met at a reunion. She moved far away, but we still keep in touch frequently. Daisy is due to give birth soon, and thinking about it made me want a child too.
Maybe I'm pregnant too?
I gently stroked my stomach. It felt a bit warmer than usual.
So if you've taken painkillers, you shouldn't be in pain anymore. Vacuum the floor.
He stared on the painkiller package I had just taken.
I will. Please wait a little for the medicine to work.
When I told him that, he sighed loudly and stood up.
It's not like I was asking him to do the chores, he could have waited a bit.
I was holding back my sigh, then a sharp pain shot through my back. As I fell to the floor, I saw my husband, Stephen, sitting indecently with one leg on the back of the sofa.
I shocked and wondered, did he just kick me, as he laughed coldly. It's enough with the period pain excuses. Just vacuum the floor now.
My name is Mary. I'm 27 years old. I'm a typical housewife living with my husband, Stephen. I met Stephen when I joined the company where he worked. After graduating from college, I took a job in sales. Stephen was my mentor there. He was handsome with short hair, and his good looks and conversation skills attracted customers. In a sales job, successful individuals are those who possess extensive knowledge and information about the products they are selling, and can utilize these insights in their sales approach. Alternatively, it's said there's another type of successful salesperson is who can make the customer feeling to sign a contract. Stephen was definitely the latter. Initially, I only had respect for him as a successful salesman.
But when I was struggling to make deals, Stephen reached out to me.
Gradually, I began confiding in him. While we were going out and having meals together, and developed my feelings for him.
Therefore, I was overjoyed when we started dating and ecstatic when he proposed. Our married life was filled with happiness.
But there was one thing that always troubled me.
The fact that I have suffered from severe menstrual pain since my school days.
Initially, I used mild over-the-counter painkillers, but as my body got used to them, I needed stronger medication to get through my daily life. When we were dating, Stephen would adjust his plans according to my cycle and would comfort me when I complained about the pain.
I thought this care would continue after marriage. But I was wrong.
Every month, the same menstrual pain occurred. Seeing me struggle to do housework without medication, Stephen would just sigh.
This didn't just start in the last few years, get used to it.
He started saying that to me. We both work, but Stephen earns more and contributes a larger amount to our living expenses. My earnings wouldn't be enough for living both of us, so I put extra effort into housework. During my period, I would finish as much housework as I could while the painkillers were effective, then rest a bit on the sofa before resuming.
I was doing everything in order, but to Stephen, it seemed like I was just lying down and resting. No matter how much I did, he never offered a word of comfort.
Then one day, we bought a new house. We had been living in an apartment, but we purchased a larger home in case we had children. Stephen's parents love socializing and often host parties with relatives. Stephen thought it was a perfect opportunity to show off our new house, and decided to invite the relatives for a party at our place.
Once he made up his mind, Stephen was quick to act. He set the date for the party and handed me a list of relatives who would be attending. The list included not only names but also ages and food preferences.
To my surprise, Stephen,
"Make sure to prepare dishes that cater to everyone's preferences. I won't forgive any shortcuts like buying ready-made appetizers," he said in an annoyed tone.
It was challenging to plan the menu as everyone had different likes and dislikes, and some favorite foods of one person were disliked by another. After days of sleepless nights for planning the menu, my period started behind than I expected. I took painkillers, finished cleaning the rooms, and decorated them with flowers the day before. I placed air fresheners and repeatedly went over the next day's party steps in my mind.
Then that night, after preparing the menu, finally I went to bed. While I was preparing with the help of painkillers, Stephen had daily evening drinking and laughing loudly at the TV. I remembered Stephen like that as I fell asleep in bed.
The next morning, I got up before Stephen to make breakfast and started cooking for the party while tidying up. I was checking the time constantly and kept moving. I arranged the finished dishes on the table and carefully checked every area, from the entrance to the living room and the bathroom.
But it seemed the effect of the painkillers was wearing off, as I could no longer to bear the gradually intensifying pain, so sat down on the sofa. I wanted to lie down, but since I had managed to do my hair and makeup nicely, and didn't know when the relatives would arrive, I decided to just sit. As I turned my gaze towards Stephen, he was watching TV, a glass of alcohol in hand. Despite the fact that relatives were about to arrive, I wanted to say "don't start drinking now" to Stephen, but the words wouldn't come out.
Noticing my gaze, Stephen glared at me.
What? You're giving me that don't drink at this time look? It's not that. I'm getting nervous too. And you're just lounging on the sofa. You finished the preparations, right?
Stephen put his glass on the table and walked towards me.
I felt a strange tension in his stare, a bad feeling growing inside me. Everything is in order. But my period started, and the painkiller's effect is wearing off, so I'm taking a short break. I'll get moving soon.
Stephen sighed and glared at me.
Don't coddle yourself over a mere stomachache. My mom never did that.
Right after those words. Just as I thought Stephen had come up behind me, I was suddenly kicked in my back and fell off the sofa to the floor. By the time I realized that I had been kicked by someone, I was already on the floor, and it took me a while to grasp what had happened.
Meanwhile, Stephen sat down on the sofa nonchalantly. And, unbelievably, he started playing games on his mobile phone. I couldn't understand what was happening or the situation I was in. All I knew was that Stephen, without a single word of apology, was laughing and enjoying his game.
When I tried to stand up, suddenly Stephen fell to the floor. Looking up to see why he fell, I saw Stephen's dad, Paul. He was standing behind the sofa.
Paul looked furious, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. What's going on?
Stephen couldn't be understanding the situation and checked the sofa in panic.
Oh, Paul? Did you just push me?
While Stephen was picking up his phone from the floor, and he asked Paul.
I didn't push you, I shoved you, Stephen. What? Why would Paul shove me? You fools, what do you mean for kicking someone in the back? And that someone is your wife, Stephen.
Stephen seemed a bit taken aback by Paul's anger.
I was just a bit bold because I was drinking.
Stephen tried to respond, but Paul glared at him, his excuse not mitigating the situation.
Don't blame it on the alcohol. Whatever the reason, a man should never resort to violence against a woman.
What do you mean by reason? This is like discipline.
Discipline?
Yes, she was resting on the sofa even though the preparations weren't finished.
So I was teaching her that if you don't work, you don't have a rest.
It's part of discipline.
Right, Mary?
Suddenly asked by Stephen, I didn't know how to respond.
I had properly finished the preparations and sat on the sofa just to rest a bit.
Should I tell the truth because I did everything correctly? As I hesitated, Paul also turned his gaze towards me.
Mary, is what Stephen's saying true? I couldn't find the words to reply. If I told the truth, Stephen might get scolded by Paul and spoil his mood, especially with relatives about to arrive.
I didn't want to cause any trouble for the relatives who were coming to see our new house. I was about to agree with Stephen.
Mary, your silence is an answer, isn't it?
Confused by Paul's words, then I asked back.
If what Stephen said was true, Mary would have immediately agreed. But Mary is silent. That suggests that something, or everything is not true what Stephen said.
I felt as if Paul had seen through everything. I opened my mouth to tell the truth. The preparations are already done. It's just that I am feeling a bit unwell today.
What? It's just your period.
Stephen interrupted my words.
Unable to say it directly in front of Paul, I tried to phrase it differently, but Stephen's lack of tact brought my tears from my eyes.
Saying you're unwell over a mere period. If the preparations are done, then say so. I thought Mary was just lazily sitting on the sofa again, not finishing the preparations.
Stephen's words were final. He didn't remember what I said earlier about almost finishing the preparations. He hadn't seen that I had been preparing since early morning, or rather, since yesterday, doing all the work myself without his help. He wasn't aware that I had taken painkillers to manage. He had decided to host the party here on his own and didn't help with any other preparations or cooking. A sense of injustice began to grow inside me.
Listen to this.
She's been complaining about severe menstrual pain since before we got married, but she still can't get used to the pain. Every month it's like this. My mom was never like this, right, Paul? It seems I was right to come early to help Mary since you said you would entertain us as the inconsiderate host. What? I'm inconsiderate? Not Mary? Yes, it's you! You insisted on having the party here but didn't cooperate with Mary in preparations. Had you worked together, you would have understood how hard she worked and how much she was suffering. Instead, you started drinking before guests arrived. The one who was lounging around was you, Stephen.
Stephen was clearly frightened by Paul's yelling.
I didn't want Stephen to end up regretting like I do. I tried to educate you with that feeling.
Paul pulled a chair from the dining table, sat down, and sighed heavily.
Patricia was like Mary, suffered from severe menstrual pain. Being a man, I had no knowledge about menstruation, and it wasn't an information-rich era like now. Plus, her mother used to say she was weak for not managing her condition, so I thought menstrual pain was just a lack of self-management.
Paul spoke slowly, seemingly recalling the past.
Back then, painkillers were weak. Patricia, a housewife living with in-laws, was forced to do all the chores, even during severe menstrual pain. Then, Patricia collapsed. We rushed her to the hospital, and she was diagnosed with endometriosis, which shattered her dream of giving Stephen siblings.
Stephen asked Paul in a small voice.
It varies by individual, and not everyone ends up like that. But excessive endurance of menstrual pain can lead to illness, and Patricia did become ill. She faced stress from housework, childcare, inconsiderate to parents' in-laws, and an unsupportive husband, eventually leading to infertility. I blamed the era, and also her mother, but it was all wrong. I should have understood for her. We can't experience their pain, so I should have listened and accepted her reality. But I didn't, and it was my fault, blindly agreeing with her mother. I regret not knowing and still do.
Patricia supported Paul's shoulder as he spoke in a somber tone. I could only eye contact to Patricia in acknowledgement, who wore a sad smile as she said, "Sorry for intruding."
Paul tried hard to understand. Despite his busy work, he often helped with chores and even cut ties with his own parents.
Patricia looked at Paul lovingly. It was the least I could do. I didn't want to burden Patricia anymore. I wanted us three to live happily, so I did what I had to. But cutting ties with parents is a big decision. I didn't want you to have to make such decisions, so I tried to show you my mistakes. But it seems none of it got through to you. Unable to bear the tense atmosphere, Stephen spoke in an inappropriately cheerful voice.
Paul, you're exaggerating. In my memory, Mom was sick in bed, but I don't remember her being bedridden due to her period. Maybe you're just remembering it as worse than it was?
Patricia's hand on Paul's shoulder trembled slightly. Gently stroking her hand, Paul glared at Stephen. You just forgot.
Patricia didn't want to worry you and tried to hide it as much as possible. If pain were just a matter of willpower, it wouldn't lead to illness. But virtually, Patricia did suffer from menstrual pain and had to lie in bed. I remember you coming home from school and complaining about her always sleeping. Nor Mary, but you also never saw Patricia's struggles.
Paul's words weighed heavily on Stephen, his shoulders visibly drooping.
I didn't know what to say or if it was even my place to speak in such an atmosphere.
Then, the doorbell rang. It was 5 minutes before the appointed time, and I hurried to answer the door, cradling my aching stomach. On the screen, relatives were visible. I quickly responded and rushed to the entrance. Opening the door, the relatives greeted us with a bouquet arranged for our new housewarming.
I thanked them and led them into the living room with due respect.
As the relatives entered the living room, the atmosphere was still tense between the parents-in-law and Stephen, causing the relatives to exchange glances.
What happened, Paul?
One of the relatives asked Paul.
Thank you all for coming to celebrate Stephen's new house. Sorry for the bad atmosphere, we were just arguing. Does arguing usually mess up the sofa and cushions like this?
He misunderstood Mary resting on the sofa due to poor health as laziness and pushed her off. I was scolding him for that. Hearing Paul's words, the relatives' expressions turned to disbelief, and a younger-looking woman came over to me.
Are you okay? You must be tired from all the preparations.
I shook my head in response. No, just severe menstrual pain.
Just? What did you say? There's menstrual leave at work, you know. I've used it too. Everyone's pain varies, but when it's really bad, you can apply for it at work. Why can't you rest at home?
She said this and turned to Stephen with momentum.
What?
Stephen, taken aback, was met with cold stares from the parents-in-law and the relatives. Unable to bear the scrutiny, Stephen rushed into his room.
Despite Stephen's absence, no one followed him.
It seemed the relatives knew about Patricia's condition, and even the men showed understanding. The parents-in-law immediately came to me, apologizing for their son's behavior, while the relatives admired the new house and praised my cooking.
No one blamed me. They were impressed with the food and showered me with compliments.
I began to enjoy myself as the painkillers started to work. After a while, I received an email from Stephen. It said that because of me, he couldn't enjoy the gathering at all. He wrote about being scolded by Paul and having no allies among the relatives, wondering why it all had to be him.
I was annoyed he chose to email rather than call.
As I contemplated how to respond, Patricia glanced at my phone. Seeing the message, and she stood up. Paul was seeing that, then asked, "What's going on?" Patricia snatched the mobile phone from me and handed it to Paul. When Paul looked at the phone, he also stood up, just like Patricia had.
He still hasn't understood anything. It seems I need to take him home and re-educate him from the basics.
Although unexpected, Paul and Patricia said this, looking at each other. Later, the relatives also agreed with the idea of re-educating Stephen, and they seemed fully committed to it. After a while, sensing the atmosphere, the relatives tactfully left, and Patricia went to Stephen's room and dragging him out.
Both Paul and Patricia took Stephen by the arm, and he was led away without a chance to protest.
About a week later, Stephen was taken back to his parents' house. I received an email from him. According to it, he mentioned that Patricia was making him extensively study about the female body and the difficulties of menstrual pain. He was being made to do household chores under Paul's supervision, assuming Patricia was in pain.
The email sounded like complaints about balancing work and housework.
I laughed when reading it.
Thinking about how Paul and Patricia had said they would re-educate him from the basics, and it was really happening.
I wondered if Stephen now understood a bit of my feelings, which made me smile.
During this time, I took the opportunity to focus on my menstrual health.
Following the relatives' advice that severe menstrual pain should be checked by a gynecologist, I visited the hospital while Stephen was away. Because of the advice on medication, daily routines, and precautions was helpful.
Life without Stephen's comments was surprisingly comfortable. I could live at my own pace and lie on the sofa when I felt tired. It felt like a life where I could take care of myself. I somewhat hoped for more time like this. Partly due to Patricia's intervention, I enjoyed this slow-paced life and didn't reply to Stephen's emails.
Few weeks later, when Stephen returned with his parents. The parents-in-law, who came straight to the dining table, made Stephen sit in a chair in front of them and pulled out a green paper from an envelope. It turned out to be a divorce application.
I thought, could this really be a divorce right here and now? But Stephen was filling in the necessary information with a pen.
Stephen began filling it out, and when he finished, Paul spoke solemnly.
"Mary, if Stephen ever behaves badly towards you again, feel free to submit this signed divorce application." Paul's eyes were serious, and Stephen's too.
During our separation, Stephen was apparently re-educated by his parents-in-law and promised to change his behavior. Since then, Stephen has kept his promise, not showing arrogance and even willingly doing housework, especially during my period.
Gradually, he stopped making derogatory comments about menstruation. Our life has become more peaceful, and I am relieved. From now on, I plan to live without overexerting myself, paying attention to my health,
and taking care of myself, paying attention to my health, and taking care of myself.